At 9:27 a.m. on December 13, 1943, Second Lieutenant Philip Adair pulled his Curtiss P-40N Warhawk into a climbing turn over Assam, India, as 64 Japanese aircraft materialized through the morning haze, 3 miles east, heading directly for his base at Dinjan airfield. The 23-year-old Adair had flown 43 combat missions with the 89th Fighter Squadron protecting the Hump airlift, but this morning he was the only pilot airborne when the massive formation appeared. In the previous 8 weeks, Japanese raids on Allied airfields throughout Northeast, India had destroyed 47 transport aircraft on the ground and killed 112 personnel. His P-40, nicknamed Lulu Belle and marked with the number 44, carried 650 caliber Browning machine guns and enough ammunition for approximately 12 seconds of sustained fire. The enemy formation consisted of 24 Mitsubishi Ki-21 Sally bombers, escorted by approximately 40 Nakajima Ki-43 Oscar fighters, arranged in layers above and below the bomber stream. Intelligence reports indicated that similar-sized raids in Burma had achieved 90% hit rates on undefended airfields. Below him, Dinjan airfield housed 14 C-47 transport aircraft loaded with critical supplies for Chianghe, Kai-shek's forces in China, a field hospital treating 63 wounded soldiers, and fuel stock sufficient to support hump operations for 11 days. If the bombers reached the field unopposed, the damage would cripple Allied supply operations over the Himalayas for weeks. The nearest friendly fighters were 38 minutes away at their base in Jorhat. Adair checked his fuel gauge. Full internal tanks. Approximately 90 minutes of flight time at combat power. The Japanese formation was 3,000 feet below him, moving at 240 mph toward the airfield. Standard doctrine called for fighter pilots to wait for reinforcements. When outnumbered more than 5-1, Adair had 64-1 odds. He could radio for help and shadow the formation until support arrived. By then, the bombs would already be falling, or he could attack alone and try to disrupt their bombing run. Adair pushed the throttle forward. His Allison V1710 engine responded immediately, the manifold pressure climbing to 54 inches. The P-40 accelerated to 320 mph. He positioned himself 4,000 feet above the bomber formation, coming at them from the south with the sun behind him. The Oscars hadn't spotted him yet. Their attention was focused forward on the target. He had one advantage: surprise. The Japanese pilots expected fighters to meet them near the target, not 20 miles out. Adair planned his attack vector. Hit the lead bomber formation first. Ignore the fighters initially. Break their bombing accuracy. Make them scatter. Force them to abort the run. Can one P-40 disrupt 64 Japanese aircraft? Please like this video to see how this turns out. Subscribe for more stories, and let's continue. Back to Adair. The lead Sally bomber group flew in tight formation. 6 aircraft arranged in 2 Vs of 3. Adair rolled inverted, pulled the nose down, and dove at the bombers from their 7 o'clock high position. His airspeed built rapidly, 340 miles per hour. The P-40's Allison engine screamed at full power. Range closed fast. The bomber crews still hadn't seen him. At 800 yards, he opened fire, his 50s hammered tracers arcing toward the lead bomber. Rounds walked up the Sally's left wing. Fabric tore. Metal sparked. The bomber's port engine erupted in orange flame. Black smoke poured from the cowling. The formation broke. Bombers scattered left and right, their tight V dissolving into chaos. Adair pulled up hard, 7 Gs crushing him into a seat, and rolled right. 40 Oscar fighters were diving toward him. The Nakajima Ki-43 Oscar was one of the most maneuverable fighters in the Pacific Theater. Powered by a Nakajima HA-115, engine producing 1,150 horsepower, it could reach 329 miles per hour at 13,000 feet and execute turning circles tighter than any American fighter. Standard P-40 tactics against Oscars were simple: never turn with them. Use speed. Hit and run. Extend away, reset. Adair couldn't extend away. If he fled, the bombers would reform and complete their attack run on Dinjan. He had to keep pressure on the formation.
Keep them scattered.
Keep them nervous, even if it meant fighting 40 Oscars alone. The first 4 Oscars came at him in a loose finger 4 formation from his 10 o'clock high. Adair rolled left, pulled the nose up, and fired a 2-second burst at the lead fighter. 50 caliber.
Rounds missed high.
The Oscar broke right. Its wingman followed. Adair reversed, diving away to maintain speed. His ammunition counter showed 800 rounds remaining. Behind the fighter screen, the Sally bombers were attempting to reform. 3 groups of 6 aircraft each were closing back into formation. If they achieved their bombing V again, they would press the attack. Adair had perhaps
90 seconds before they reached their release point over Dinjan.
He rolled out, shoved the throttle to the stop, and dove toward the bombers again. 8 Oscars followed him down. The P-40 accelerated to 405 miles per hour in the dive. The Oscars couldn't match that speed. Adair pulled out at bomber altitude and lined up on the right-hand Sally formation.
Range 300 yards, he fired.
The lead bomber's right engine exploded in a fireball. The bomber rolled right, streaming fire and debris. Its wingman broke formation. Adair kicked rudder, skidded left, fired at another.
Sally, his rounds punched
through the bomber's thin fuselage skin. The Oscars were closing again, 12 of them this time. Adair's fuel gauge showed 162 gallons remaining. His ammunition counter read 650 rounds. The bombers were 19 miles from Dinjan. He had perhaps 4 minutes. Then his engine started overheating. The coolant system was designed to handle sustained combat. Power for approximately 20 minutes. Adair had been running at full power for 11 minutes. His coolant temperature gauge showed 230 degrees Fahrenheit. At 250, the engine would begin to fail. He had 3 options: reduce power to cool, abandon the attack, or continue fighting and risk engine failure. Adair kept the throttle forward. 2 Oscars came at him head-on. He fired back. His heavier .50 caliber rounds hit the left Oscar's engine cowling. The lightweight fighter shuttered, broke left, trailing white coolant vapor. Adair rolled right and dove. His coolant temperature hit 240 degrees. He dove past 6, intercepting Oscars at 390 miles per hour, too fast for them to follow. He opened fire on the lead Sally. His first burst hit the wing root. The wing structure failed. The Sally rolled inverted and entered a spin. The formation broke again. Their bombing accuracy was destroyed. Adair pulled up hard. His coolant temperature gauge showed 248 degrees. The engine was running rough. Detonation was starting. 8 Oscars dove on him from above. 7.7 rounds punched through his right wing. 1 round hit his right aileron control rod. Another burst walked up his fuselage and penetrated the coolant reservoir. Green coolant sprayed across his windscreen. The engine temperature gauge climbed past 260 degrees.
Steam erupted.
His oil pressure dropped. Adair chopped the throttle. The engine RPM fell. The P-40 started descending at 1/500 feet per minute.
Then his engine caught fire.
Standard procedure for engine fires was immediate shutdown and bailout, but his altitude was only 8,000 feet, descending rapidly. He kept the engine running, pulling the fuel mixture control back to idle cutoff for 3 seconds. The fire intensity decreased. The engine continued running, but rough. The raid was broken. The airfield was safe. Adair turned southwest toward his base at Nagaguli, 43 miles away. 6 Oscars followed him. At 7,000 feet, his engine oil pressure dropped to 0. The engine was now running on momentum and friction. The propeller began windmilling unevenly. His airspeed dropped to 118 ps. Behind him, the Oscars closed to 400 yards, watching, waiting for the engine to fail completely. 1 Oscar pilot gestured downward. Land the aircraft, surrender. Adair ignored him. At 6,000 feet, smoke began filling his cockpit from damaged electrical wiring. He slid the canopy open. His airspeed fell to 160 miles per hour. The Oscars backed off. At 4,000 feet, Adair's right aileron control cable snapped. The aileron flopped to full deflection. The P-40 rolled right, and the nose dropped into a dive. He had no pitch control. The jungle rushed up at him. Altitude 1,800 feet. He had an idea. Roll the aircraft inverted. Flying upside down would reverse the control inputs. The damaged aileron would force the nose up instead of down. At 1,800 feet above the jungle, Adair rolled the P-40 completely inverted. The nose came up. The descent slowed. At 1,200 feet, the P-40 leveled out. Flying upside down at 140 pleased, he was climbing slowly. Then fuel starvation forced him to roll upright. The damaged controls immediately pushed the nose down. The pattern repeated, upside down to climb, right side up to let fuel feed properly. The 6 Oscars watched this impossible display before turning east toward Burma. Adair continued his rolling, climbed toward Nagaguli. His fuel gauge showed 83 gallons.
His engine should have seized by now.
At 5,000 feet, Adair spotted Nagaguli airfield. He faced a new problem. His landing gear was hydraulic. With minimal engine power, the pump wasn't generating sufficient pressure. He needed the backup manual hand pump. He looped his lap belt around the control stick to hold a neutral position. He grabbed the hand pump with both hands. 28 strokes were needed. At stroke 28, the main gear extended and locked. The P-40 was now draggy. His airspeed fell to 135 km. Nagaguli runway was 7 miles ahead. His vision tunneled from carbon monoxide poisoning. His engine temperature gauge showed 310 degrees. At 2 miles from the runway, his engine quit. The P-40 became a very poor glider. His glide ratio was perhaps 6-to-1. He wasn't going to make the runway. Then he remembered that an inverted glide could theoretically extend range by reducing drag. At 800 feet, 1 mile from the runway, Adair rolled inverted. The descent rate was 500 feet per minute. Better than right side up. The airspeed held steady at 125 feet. At 200 feet altitude, 300 yards from the threshold, Adair rolled right side up. The damaged aileron immediately pushed the right wing down. He fought the aircraft, pulling back on the stick. The P-40 descended too fast, too steep. The main wheels hit the concrete runway hard, 7G impact. The right main gear collapsed. The right wing tip dug in. The aircraft ground looped right, spinning 180 degrees, and skidded backward for 200 feet. Fire crews raced toward the aircraft. Adair sat motionless for 12 seconds, then climbed out. They counted 16 bullet holes in the fuselage, and the engine was destroyed. Lulu Belle would never fly again. But Philip Adair had saved the Dinjan airfield. Intelligence confirmed all 2040. Sally bombers had turned back without dropping their ordnance. The raid was broken 15 miles short of the target.